Just to add on to that, it's just a case scenario in San Diego. The county assumed that there was going to be an energy increase. The county Office of Education was given an $8 million projection in terms of the cost of energy from one year to the next for the district.
Total energy cost?
The increase, it would be an $8 million increase. That increase actually came in at $30 million. Of course, when we approve a budget, when we say this is what we estimate the costs are going to be, they go with the actual electric provider or the service provider's estimate that they provide to the school district in anticipation of those decisions, and then they come back later with a $30 million difference in the original estimate. That has a huge impact in the ability of those schools to budget accordingly and to provide the educational services that they need. So I hope that this program, and I think there's a good possibility that this program could create some kind of expectation, some kind of level of certainty for the future in their budgeting, that if they have some control over the energy generation and efficiency, if they can save energy, that could lead to substantial savings for these districts. And we're looking at savings of future years. In addition to that, I've also heard of stories where some districts don't even have. I mean, we're talking about schools that are equipped with HVAC systems that are not even operational. So there can potentially pose some data that could skew the information, and that now they're generating actually that they're consuming more energy, but we're actually providing an environment for our kids in all part of the state to learn in an environment where they have the right learning temperature, the right facilities. So I think generally you're asking excellent questions. I think at this point it's going to be hard to determine eventually where we get to, but I think it's worth a try to use our facilities that are huge energy consumers. The schools, the ones that we do have more control of, where we can work within a system that has substantial citizen oversight throughout the state, through our boards, through our oversight committees, through our legislature, in determining that we're making the right investments that are getting us the right results within the areas I think we have more control of, and within the areas that we know we have deferred maintenance, and within the areas that we know need improvements. So thank you, Senator. We're going to ask you to, Senator?
I would like to hear some comment about how easy or difficult it has been to work with the IOUs at the site level. So those of you that are coming forward from the schools and your projects, I'd really like to know about the nitty-gritty of exactly, how easy has it been or not to work with the IOUs in essentially decentralizing a lot of this energy. So thanks.
Thank you for your questions, and we will get the information to you. This was a good opportunity to skip to the next slide, which I think will give a good snapshot of, to date, the kind of projects that the school districts have been applying for funds and what we've approved. And by far, you can see that lighting controls are at the top of the list. That is relatively low-hanging fruit. And HVAC controls, and some on plug loads, but it's dominated by lighting and HVAC. %60% are lighting and lighting controls, 30% fall into the category of HVAC and HVAC control measures, and the remaining 10% to all others. So let's go to energy savings. So what we're looking at and this is based on the approved fundings to date, and this gets to the pipeline question. These are pipeline based numbers. Yeah, the reports are coming in right now. We've got a pretty good sample. I'll give you where we are on that in just a minute, a slide or two here. But should the projects get constructed as submitted in their application and operate as expected. This is the rundown of energy savings that we expect, and the savings in dollars are the school districts to keep. So let's talk about reporting. We began receiving reports from LEAs in November of 2015, just at the end of this past year. LEAs are required to provide annual progress reports, applications each year, and once all the energy measures in the application are complete, the LEA must submit a final project completion report 12 to 15 months after the project completion date. This requirement is a statutory condition designed to allow the LEA a full year of energy usage data post-installation of the measures. For this first cycle of reporting, LEAs with applications approved before July 1st, 2015 were required to report. A total of 431 annual progress reports were due, and the Energy Commission received 404. We're getting others that are coming in, but to date, 431 due, 404 received. Preliminary analysis indicates that 95 projects of the 431 are actually completed. So we're looking at 95 where the work is done. These LEAs will submit final project completion projects reports once 12 to 15 months of post-installation utility usage and billing data is available. A total of 17 final project completion reports were due. 11 reports were received. Again, these were due in November, and this is received to date.
You have of those 95 operational projects, you have displayed these great numbers of $38 million of projected savings. I've seen a lot of projections of these numbers. We know, as of today, the voters passed something in 12. We now have 95 projects. Do we know what that saves and what that produces?
We could break that out. We have, what we have right now is, what we displayed to you was approved applications.
Right.
But we could break out the 95 projects. I don't have it on my fingertips, but we could do that.
Yeah, you should definitely do that, because this to me, it's nice, but it's government goo-goo. I mean, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but come on, man. This is a serious place. And you can say this could be $7 billion if you want to project numbers and based upon projections. I think it's important to get a reasonable projection. I'm okay with that. But that should be married with the status of where we are today so that this House, this legislative branch made a decision and can then further assess and whether this was intelligent. I agree with that. I would have voted for it had I been here. I thought it was smart. But now the question is, our job is to always be diligent with tax dollars, diligent with environmental policy, and to have those options available to us and then let us make the decisions.
Fair enough.
So I just think that it would be really good if you could add that in the future, make sure that you present things that just lay out what's there. That's all. We can make whatever decisions we deem appropriate.
And again, you know, we're in the application period, and in many of these projects, so that information will be compiled
The only thing I can say,
eventually.
Mr. Chairman, is this. I mean, I'm demonstrating a frustration because I have been in the private sector. I have seen what has happened globally in 4 years. 4 years, all this money. I see the impacts, and do not accept the time frames. It does not take a year to make an assessment. That is not how the private sector works. It does not take this much time. It just doesn't.
It took a year for the Senate
but
to
I'm
pass
telling
the
you-
policy and a year and a half to begin
And
implementation.
just to the extent we can amp it up a little bit.
Of
And
those 4 years, I mean, look at the timeline.
time.
You know, we have to go through an application process, and if you look at this, I mean, they started implementing the program in February, a month after in other words, the applications were submitted in February, a month after they began the program. That's not a long time. And I question if we needed more time to get more applications submitted earlier. So of the first tranche that went in February 2014, 33 applications totaling 16 million were approved. That's not a lot. But in the second tranche, I mean, think about what you're asking for, an analysis on 16 million. you're not going to get a lot of data on that small pot of applications. The following one I'm sorry, the first one was February 2013, and, no, 2014, 2014.
Oh, I see, this is the page 6?
The timeline, the first applications were submitted February 2014. That's not a long time ago. And the latest ones were done in February 2015, where 400 applications were submitted and 257 million were approved. So we're looking currently at a process that has just begun, that is in its second year, really, of implementation, where these projects will be built out over the course of the next 4 years. For the initiation, we're expecting those projects to be completed somewhere around 2017, 2014. Is that correct?
So,
My only point, Mr. Chairman, is that
And I think your point was taken. I just wanted to clarify. I understand your point. We're running grossly behind on time because we have lots of other presenters that I think will provide you with different graphs, different information on different subjects that I think will be useful to some of the questions that you have. And nothing stops us as legislators for continuing our question after this. Sir, did you want to continue?
I'll clip real quick through your
Yeah.
last slides, but for Senator Hertzberg, we have 17 projects that are complete, and I had the data run so we can do the evaluation. So the universe has 17 projects out of
17.
17 out of thousands of schools, sites that we're working on. We approved funds. So we have the universe of, as I speak to you today, the universe of completed projects that have data that you could analyze is 17. So I'll go to the next slide. We continue to do outreach. This came up earlier. Let's go to the next slide and say there's some resources available to answer questions. And I'll just wrap it up here because I know you have a hearing ahead of you still. And of course, I'm available to answer any other questions or to attempt to answer any questions that you
And we
have.
intentionally put in a very long list of presenters to provide that additional information that you need. So I hope you'll get it as the agenda plays out here. Yeah, you were going to say?
That concludes my testimony.
Okay,
I'm more
very
than
good.
happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And we'll do a panel change at this point. We've had a really good discussion on this portion of it. And for those ensuing presenters, maybe they'll consider some of the debate that we've had here. If you had some information to add to some of the questions that were posed here, I would encourage you to include those. We have Peter Foggiato, the director of the School Fiscal Services Division. I think he'll be accompanied with Rebecca Lee, the consultant for the School Fiscal Services Division from the Department of Education. Welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Good morning. My name is Peter Foggiato, Director of School Fiscal Services Division at the California Department of Education. Joining me is my colleague Rebecca Lee. She is a consultant in the division, and Prop 39 is among her assignments. We appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today about the department's role. As you've heard, the Energy Commission does most of the heavy lifting for the program. CDE is responsible for calculating entitlements, apportioning funds, and then we do have a role in resolving audit findings. Additionally, because many LEAs are likely to come to the CDE for information related to Proposition 39, we have created a landing page on our website that links them up to various resources. Some of those were shared with you in that last slide. I thought I might briefly describe the process that the department follows to calculate the entitlements or awards, apportion funds, and describe where we are at with the allocations. Each year after enactment of the budget, we embark on a process to determine which LEAs are requesting 2 years' worth of funding, which is allowed by the program for LEAs that have fewer than 1,000 units of average daily attendance. We do this data collection through a web-based data application. We essentially leveraged another web-based application we have for a mandate block grant program. We need to know this information in order to calculate entitlements because those LEAs that collect 2 years' worth of entitlements in 1 year receive a larger share for that current year, and their share for the subsequent year is reduced to 0. They have until September 1st to make that election, and then once we have all the information, we calculate and publish awards, typically in October and November. Those awards are based on prior year average daily attendance and prior year free and reduced price meal counts. And once we know the awards, we apportion them quarterly based upon information we receive from the Energy Commission. Quarterly apportionments are in January, April, July, and October, and we publish a cash flow spreadsheet that tells LEAs when they're going to receive funding for Prop 39, among the many other programs that we apportion funds. Each apportionment could contain funds for one of three reasons. The first is for planning funds. At this point, the only LEAs that are eligible for planning funds are new charter schools. More likely, the apportionment includes payments for LEAs that have had an energy plan approved since the last quarterly apportionment. And then finally, the third type of payment that is in an apportionment could be, and we typically would only see this in the January apportionment, are apportionments for LEAs that have had approved energy plans in the past, but the awards amount was less than the amount approved. And this would happen if they had a multi-year expenditure plan approved. I believe you were given a handout. I'll speak to that. As the handout shows, we've calculated entitlements for $973 million in funds, paid out $365 million to date. Of that, 153.5 was for planning, and 212 million has been for the energy projects. Another 125 million is currently in transit, and LEAs will receive it in the next few weeks. And finally, I wanted to just share the department's role in the audit process. As you're probably aware, local educational agencies must track their clean energy funds in a way that the revenues and expenditures can be identified. And we enforce this by assigning a unique resource code in the standard chart of accounts followed by LEAs. And each year, as part of their annual audit done by independent CPAs, there are procedures in the audit guide that have the auditors verify certain things. Among them are, if the LEA has expenditures, using clean energy funds to verify the expenditures are appropriate, such as for elements of their approved expenditure plan. We have only received 7 audits for the 2013, or 7 audit findings, excuse me, for the 2013-14 year, all of which have been resolved. 2014-15 audit reports were due just before the holidays, and my staff are still reading the audit reports, so I cannot report yet on the number of audit findings. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Did we have any questions for Mr. Foggiato? Okay. Thank you, sir. We're gonna move on to the community colleges. If we have Susan Yeager present. Susan Yeager here? Okay, there you are. Susan Yeager is the Director of Facilities and Planning and Utilization with the California Community Colleges Chancellor's Office. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. Thank you so much for having us today to talk with you about the California Community Colleges implementation of Prop 39. I'm Susan Yeager. I'm the Director of Facilities, and this is Huang Nguyen. He is lead staff on our Prop 39, and this is Matt Sullivan, our program consultant. We believe that community colleges has a success story to share. We have been able to get Proposition 39 implementation off the ground fairly quickly. We currently have over 600 energy projects either completed or in progress, and have awarded over 13,000 certificates in energy-related fields. The projects that have been closed out and completed include 108 projects that have been completed, resulting in a verified energy savings of 24.5 million kilowatt hours and 256,000 therms, which is enough power to energy to power about 4,000 homes. The projects have generated 238 job years and are saving districts $3.4 million in annual energy cost. In addition to the closed-out projects,
homes in what period of time?
In a year's period.
In a
I believe.
year?
That's correct,
Wow, that's
yes.
amazing.
So this is annual energy savings. These are verified energy savings for completed projects, and I'll discuss that a little bit further. We also have 432 projects in process, and we expect the same or better results from those projects. The funds for Proposition 39 for the community colleges are allocated at the chancellor's discretion. He has chosen to allocate the funds approximately 87% to energy projects, which is the program I manage, and another 13% to workforce development, which is managed by a colleague. Gary Adams is here today. From there, a lot of my comments today are about the energy projects because that seemed to be the nature of the questions that the committee was most interested in. I will try to, forgive me if I fumble a little bit, but I am trying to take into account the senator's questions and try to, some of the detail I may not have gone into, I will try to hit those for you today. The reason the California community colleges were able to get off the ground so quickly is that we have an existing partnership called we call it the CCC IOU partnership, but basically it is the California Community Colleges Investor-Owned Utilities Energy Efficiency Partnership. The partnership has been in effect since 2006 and was designed to develop energy projects that could take advantage of available utilities incentives and have those projects approved and result in long-term energy and cost savings to districts. Since the goals and objectives of Prop 39 were very similar, we were able to overlay the Prop 39 program over the infrastructure we had developed for the partnership. In recognition of this, the legislature allowed the community colleges to move forward with implementation of Prop 39 separate from the CEC efforts. And we had guidelines that were developed in May 2013. We published them on our website in October 2013, and our first projects were funded that same month. From there, we had a backlog, if you will, of $350 million of energy projects already identified because of the partnership. For this reason, and because we knew that we would be asked, what are your results? We did not allow districts, with the exception of 2 districts, we did not allow planning funds in first year. So we asked for districts to look at the projects on that $350 million list and prioritize their projects. And in order to do that, we had an infrastructure in place to do that, which included a program consultant whose job it is to review district projects before they're submitted to the utilities, to also verify projects after the fact, and to help our districts that are not located within investor-owned utility territory. Then we also have the investor-owned utilities that have been instrumental in helping our districts. They've been very helpful. They communicate with our districts even more than we do. They review projects. They verify projects after installation. And so that partnership has become a very important part of our success at this. There were a number of questions that were asked by legislative staff, so I want to make sure that we hit the highlights. I talked about that we were able to hit the ground running, that we are separate, our guidelines are separate from those of K-12 from the CEC. We have a form called a Form B. It is similar to what this K-12 form expenditure plan. So every year we get Form B submitted by districts. They would ideally have all the projects the districts plan to do with their funds that year on that report. The program manager and the utilities help districts identify projects and help them work out the calcs so that when the projects are actually submitted to the utilities, they're good to go. And the criteria that we use for Prop 39 projects is the same as that used for the parallels the utilities process for the CPUC. So we're using the same verification methods and so forth, so that we weren't reinventing the wheel. In terms of planning and outreach, we started in October 13. We did have projects we approved that month, and we proceeded to allocate out the funds after that. What we did to educate districts was we had workshops in some form or another up and down the state. We had specific Prop 39 forums. We also went to professional organizations such as the Community College Coalition, Community College Facilities Coalition, and the Chief Business Officers Association, so that we could get to different audiences, because who we needed to reach for Prop 39 are CBOs, Chief Business Officers, Facilities Directors, and purchasing. Purchasing people are really important in the implementation of this program. Because of the sole source prohibition and the way things are bid, the purchasing folks at campuses are key. So we did a lot of planning with a lot of different groups, and what we do is, and we're still doing that now, we still go out and we talk to groups. This is actually my third Prop 39 presentation in the last couple of weeks. We, whatever is coming up next, we educate districts on next steps. Okay, so for instance, right now we're in the call for projects period, and so we're asking districts, hey, get us your projects for year 4. We're always working 8 months to 10 months in advance. So they are working on their year 4 projects while they're working on bidding and installing year 3 projects. Another question that was asked was, by the way, the guidelines that are on our website, they've been amended for, small procedural things, but the guidelines basically tell the districts, this is what you have to do to be in compliance with the requirements of Prop 39. So we provide a variety of resources. Districts don't ever have to wonder what to do. I am often an air traffic controller. I'll get the first phone call, first email, and I can direct appropriately. We also track the districts. We're tracking projects. We're tracking what's happening. We're tracking if it's getting installed. Are we having progress? It is not unusual for me to take an interest in projects. I'm particularly concerned with the smaller districts who may not have the staff, they may not have an energy manager. So we do try to, we'll develop a plan. We meet monthly, and we might notice that this district hasn't progressed. Maybe they have not submitted a Form B, the list of their projects for year 3. We'll actually, in the nicest possible terms, stick someone on them. So whether it will be the program manager or the utilities, someone will get to those people, to that district, to find out what's going on, what is your plan. So there's quite a lot of communication going back and forth. In terms of the fund dispersal process, as I said, the funds are allocated for energy on an FTES basis. On the workforce side, I'll just take an aside there, on the workforce side, they did bid a contract for regional managers, and the regional manager then is responsible for allocating funds for training in energy-related fields in their region. On the energy side, we fund monthly. At this point, we approve and fund projects monthly. At this point, all of the year 1 funds have been allocated. Districts are either working on or have completed projects. And in year 2, most of the funds have been allocated. And in year 3, approximately 67% of the projects funding has been approved and been allocated to districts. And I should correct myself, I don't mean allocated. The funding is allocated by FTES, but it has actually been released, 67%. So in terms of the details that were being asked for, in year 1, well, this is a lot, so could I agree to send you our chart of details? I think that would be very helpful, and it's at a glance, so I think that would work. Additionally, the IOUs and the program manager help to close out projects. Unfortunately, from a district perspective, if they receive money for an energy project, they bid the project, they install the project. From their perspective, it's all good. They're saving money, they've been paid their incentive. From our perspective, we need them to report back. And so we have a process called closeout. And it's these specific forms that allow us, among other things, to know how many job hours were there on this job. That's how we track these things. We track energy savings. We track everything is tracked so that it can be verified to make sure that the project, when it was completed, met the guidelines for Prop 39. It also has to meet the utilities guidelines for the incentives. And I would also note that for the incentives, the rule is that districts have to invest the incentives into the project. So that doesn't go to other things, it goes into energy projects. To date, we've received 289 Form Bs, which is the equivalent of a energy plan covering 645 projects. So we need to finish out the rest of year 13 for, as I said, we've funded 67%. So the remainder of the districts, all districts, 112 districts have received 72 districts have received Prop 39 funding, and then they allocate it amongst their colleges and centers as they see fit, so in a local control situation.
Is there a determination?
Did you have any questions?
A couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
So of the 112 community college districts, what I want to try to get, my focus of my question has to do with an independent determination as to what's the highest and best use of the money. So if you have 72 of these districts and you say they can allocate the money as they see fit, right? Do we have a standard where we look at a facility, LA Valley College, for example, or, you know, a school and whatever, so, and say, okay, what is the project that will, by your standards, 87% energy, 13% workforce, which one of those projects have the greatest impact to achieve the desired goal? Or do we just simply let the facility locally say, I got 72 buildings in my facility and I want to do these two because for whatever reason?
I would answer that question in two ways. There is a loading order from the CPUC that we follow. So we don't want to have districts do generation projects, solar, if they're very energy inefficient on their campuses. So if their lighting is not to standard, we don't want them to do a project like generation.
Do you have a process to determine that?
Yes, we do. We know,
Is that at the Chancellor's office?
I think it actually,
Chime in a little bit?
yes, if you want.
SB 73 has some, I'm sorry.
State your name, please.
Matt Sullivan. I'm with Newcomb Anderson McCormick. We're the program consultant for the Chancellor's office. SB 73 has criteria for ranking energy projects, so we follow that initially. We follow that initially. Part of that is the loading order from the CPUC, which says you do maximum energy efficiency first, followed by generation. Beyond that, and that's how we qualify the projects.
And that they meet the Prop 39 criteria. We have an SIR, savings to investment ratio,
Savings to investment ratio.
of 1.1. So if a project does not meet that criteria, it cannot be approved.
And how do you know that's a good criteria?
The SB 73 says the cost effectiveness test is the energy savings over the project's life cycle exceeds its cost. So
what if the standards have changed because of the technology's improved? Do you consistently go back and reassess it to make sure you get the biggest bang for the buck?
Actually, at this point, I've heard the discussion about, I preface that question, if you'll indulge me for a minute. A lot of our beginning projects were lighting projects, and we're moving into HVAC. And I know there's a lot of discussion about lighting in terms of, that's not very, everybody wants monitoring-based commissioning or retro-based commissioning projects. But lighting makes up about 25 to 30% of a district's energy bill. So we want them to get the lighting first. The 1.1 appears to be an appropriate level for lighting. As we move into HVAC, HVAC is more expensive and takes a longer time period to pay back. So we may actually have to reduce our SIR perhaps to what the CEC is doing at 1.05. I don't know the right number, but that is something that we're going to be looking
You
at.
guys looked at pipe insulation? Because I'm told the energy payback time on pipe insulation is 4 months. And that's with union labor.
yeah, we look at anything that will meet that SIR, and actually the SIR, there is some flexibility. That's the portfolio level SIR at the district. So you can have some projects that are less than 1.1 and over 1.1, as long as the portfolio level is 1.1. So, yeah, pipe insulation does save energy, but not a lot compared to, say, a lighting retrofit over a whole campus.
The only thought was energy payback time is so fast.
Yeah.
And you put people to work, it's a good thing. Final question. We were distributed here this Prop 39 Clean Energy Jobs Act, and it talks about in each year how much amount had been awarded and how much has been paid out. Now, my question relates, it says $973 million since the inception has been awarded, and of that, $153 million for planning funds. What I'm trying to understand is, it seems like a really high number to plan. Most private sector companies, even, all houses, public prevailing wage stuff, in essence, will do the planning for you for free if you sign up. That's a lot of money, $153 million. So you're out there saying, well, it looks good, we got all this money out the door, but we're spending it on technicians versus spending it on installation.
Actually, we have only funded 1 or 2 planning. We have not funded a lot of planning.
So that's in other areas of the district.
Yeah, that would be K-12. We are pretty focused on energy projects and making sure that we're actually achieving energy savings for the districts and cost savings.
Good job.
Let me just, let me see if there's just anything I need to add. There was a question about pipeline. We are tracking, we have a call for year 4 projects out, so we should have a list of potential year 4 projects by the end of February. And we do, lastly, there is a verification process per SB 73. After a project is installed, the utilities go to the site, they verify the installation, the energy savings. So if we are saying a project is completed and giving you energy savings, that's verified. And the formulas are the same as those used by the utilities per the CPUC.
Chairman, is that SB 73? I apologize, I wasn't here, I just don't know.
Oh, I
Is that
apologize.
the measure that created this, allocated this money for the schools?
I think it's the measure that creates the framework on.
Yeah, it's the implementing legislation for Proposition 39.
I see, okay.
And that
I'll be
was
back in a few.
approved, that was approved in June of 2014 or 2013. Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation.